The night the saucer fell over the Nevada desert, every jukebox in a 20-mile radius skipped the same beat. From the wreckage stepped a figure draped in silver cloth, adjusting her crown with a dignity that survived re-entry. The locals would later swear they'd seen a movie star from Mars, but she introduced herself, perfectly serious, as Zyra, Princess of Tentaculin. Her mission log flickered on a cracked screen. Objective: observe how Earthlings multiply. Warning: process appears biologically violent. She rehearsed her greeting phrases from a translation device that kept mixing idioms. Take me to your leader, came out as, I wish to engage your head manager in breeding negotiations. The first human she met, a truck driver, dropped his coffee and fled into the night. Zyra took this as a ritual of submission. She noted in her pad, males expel liquid to indicate readiness. Peculiar. By sunrise she'd found the small diner glowing like a beacon, the Milky Way Cafe. The neon sign matched her ship's navigation color, so she assumed it was an embassy. Inside, chrome counters reflected her shimmering skin, and the smell of frying bacon nearly convinced her that humans cook their prey inside metal shells. The waitress smiled at her and said, Morning, sweetheart. You look like you dropped in from outer space. Zyra, taking the statement literally, nodded gravely. Affirmative. The waitress blinked. You in costume or something, doll? I am fully functional. Zyra replied, voice metallic but polite. Request information, method of human self-replication. The waitress poured coffee, decided she didn't get paid enough for that, and pointed toward the jukebox where a couple was slow dancing. Start with that, honey. That's how it begins. Zyra watched, fascinated. The subjects swayed in synchronization, eyes half closed, exchanging small facial collisions. The princess gasped. They are transferring data orally, she whispered to herself. She activated her recorder. Observation 1. Human multiplication initiated by rhythmic friction and voice communication. A young man in a leather jacket slid onto the stool beside her. You taking notes on smooching, lady? He asked, amused. I am documenting, she said. Please explain the purpose of the oral data merge. He grinned. You mean kissing? It's research for the heart. Heart? That organ is primarily circulatory, not reproductive. He laughed. You really are something else. When she noticed his laughter, she studied him with scientific detachment. His face flushed, pulse elevated. She mistook it for a mating call. Her translator chimed. Potential volunteer detected. She leaned closer, eyes gleaming. Excellent. I require a subject for study. Lady, that's the boldest pickup line I've ever heard. Outside, the desert shimmered with heat. Zyra followed him to his car, an antique of combustion engineering that fascinated her more than his confused chivalry. Your primitive propulsion device relies on controlled explosions, she marveled. He wiped his hands on a rag. Name's Eddie. I fix machines that break hearts. Then you are a healer of mating engines? Sure, he smirked. Let's call it that. She examined his toolkit as if it were ceremonial armor. Every wrench gleamed under the sun. She decided these must be instruments of fertility. Your people use metallic tools to encourage reproduction? Depends on the weekend, he said. Their dialogue spiraled into a duet of misinterpretations. When Eddie said he lived for sparks, she imagined literal combustion. When she declared she could generate plasma with emotional contact, he thought it was some avant-garde poetry. Yet, amid the absurdity, something human, something warm, threaded through their words. At dusk, they returned to the diner. Eddie fixed her translator with a screwdriver, not realizing it was connected to a live power source. The device crackled, sending a blue pulse through both of them. For a heartbeat they stood frozen, eyes wide, energy dancing between them like static affection. Apologies, Zyra said softly. Unexpected feedback loop. Yeah, he murmured, rubbing his arm. I felt it too. Inside her mind, data overflowed, temperature rise, pulse acceleration, micro tremors of delight. None of it fit her scientific framework. She opened her log. Hypothesis compromised. Human contact induces irrational system errors, yet feels statistically pleasant. Later, as they shared a milkshake, she analyzed it like reactor coolant. Eddie asked, "So, Princess, you really studying how folks you know multiply?" "Yes." Initial reaction, horror. Secondary reaction, curiosity. Tertiary reaction, mild anticipation. He nearly choked on his straw. "You got a funny way of saying you're interested." "I am programmed to learn by participation." He coughed, laughed, and raised his glass. "To science, then." The jukebox switched songs. A crooner's voice melted through the static. "When two worlds collide." Zaira tilted her head. "Is collision required?" "Sometimes," he said, meeting her gaze. "That's how sparks fly." She recorded one last note before the night swallowed the neon. Humans multiply through chaos disguised as affection. Their rituals involve sound, sugar, and mutual short-circuiting. Further testing recommended. The camera of the mind pulls back. No faces, only silhouettes in the diner's pink glow. The alien princess sipping through two straws, the mechanic grinning, and somewhere in the desert her saucer humming quietly, preparing to log a new experiment called love. The next morning began with the hum of Eddie's garage radio and the scent of oil mixed with curiosity. Zaira stood over the hood of a half-disassembled car, treating the engine like a specimen from a new galaxy. "It is a combustion heart," she announced, tracing the pistons with awe. "It beats through fire." Eddie looked up from his wrench, amused. "Close enough. You feed it fuel, give it air, keep it cool, and it runs. Kind of like people." She narrowed her eyes. "So humans also require regular oil changes?" He laughed. "Only on bad Mondays." Her translator flickered, mishearing him. "Your species leaks frequently." "Unfortunate." He choked back a laugh, then decided there was no harm letting her think Earthlings were slightly malfunctioning. She walked around the car, fascinated by everything. When he offered her a rag, she studied it like a sacred relic. "You wipe your hands to complete a ritual of purity," she said. "That's hygiene," he corrected. "Not holiness." "Same result," she replied, wiping one of her 4 hidden appendages with ceremony. Eddie had seen tourists, soldiers, and oddballs in his life, but none quite like the woman who measured spark plugs with reverence. Her accent floated somewhere between radio drama and dream. She asked questions that turned everything he knew into comedy. Why did humans court with flowers instead of edible offerings? Why did movies celebrate kissing instead of negotiation? Why was mating linked to small talk? "We just improvise," he said. "Most of us don't have a manual." She tilted her head. "I can write one." He dropped his wrench, startled. She smiled, clearly missing the implication. By noon, the sun turned the garage into a tin oven. Eddie handed her a cola. She shook it curiously, and it sprayed across her silver sleeves. She stared at the fizz, delighted. "Carbonation mimics mating display of sea creatures," she observed. "We drink it," he said, barely holding laughter. She took a sip, eyes widening. "Effervescence stimulates nasal cavity. Pleasurable discomfort. That's the slogan, all right." He realized she didn't understand humor as defense. She treated jokes like puzzles to decode. "You laugh to reduce social tension," she noted. "Yes," he said, wiping his hands. "And sometimes because the alternative is crying." She considered this gravely. "Then laughter is emotional armor." The way she said it, pure sincerity, made him smile without irony. For a moment, the air between them quieted. Her ship's communicator buzzed faintly in her pocket. A distorted voice demanded an update on the mission. She ignored it, choosing instead to focus on Eddie's hands guiding hers over the carburetor. "Gentle," he said. "You don't force it. You feel where it wants to go." "This technique applies to human relationships also?" she asked. "Pretty much." Interesting symmetry. Her misunderstanding wasn't entirely one-sided. When he told her people fall in love, She pictured actual gravitational collapse. Dangerous phenomenon, she warned. Can bones withstand such impact? He laughed again, shaking his head. It's not the bones that get hurt. Then where? You'll find out eventually. She scribbled that in her notebook as if it were a scientific prophecy. As the afternoon faded, a group of locals wandered in, teasing Eddie about his space girlfriend. Zaira analyzed their tone. They mock to establish hierarchy, she whispered. Should I challenge them? No, Eddie hissed, then to the men. She's foreign, studying engineering. Looks more like studying you. One joked. Zaira stepped forward, eyes glowing faintly. Observation: insecure males use verbal noise to mask reproductive inadequacy. The garage went silent before the men burst out laughing, retreating with muttered curses. Eddie stared at her, half appalled, half impressed. You really don't pull punches. Punches are inefficient, she said. Precision ridicule works faster. He couldn't decide if she was genius or chaos incarnate. Probably both. When the last engine sputtered to life, they leaned against the car, sharing the silence of small towns at dusk. Zaira looked toward the horizon. Your planet is loud yet lonely. You live close but understand little. You're not wrong, he said. But we've got music and breakfast diners. That counts for something. She nodded slowly. Music, structured vibration to disguise yearning. Diners, communal feeding dens. Effective coping mechanisms. He smiled. You make it sound almost poetic. Her eyes reflected the pink streaks of sunset. Eddie Sparks, you have assisted my study immensely. I am beginning to suspect that the human reproductive process begins long before biological union. It starts here. She tapped her temple, then her chest. Thought. Emotion. You're catching on fast, he said. That's the dangerous part. The radio crackled again, playing a tune full of saxophones and longing. Eddie muttered. They don't write 'em like that anymore. She listened closely. This song carries mating instructions encoded in melody. You could say that. She wrote, emotional resonance triggers bonding. He read over her shoulder. Add that it helps if both parties dance a little. She studied his grin, the grease on his jaw, the warmth that never showed up in her data. Something stirred inside her circuits that wasn't mechanical. She whispered, almost to herself. I begin to understand combustion. He thought she meant the car. Yeah, spark plus fuel, he said. No, she replied. Spark plus fuel. He laughed until tears threatened. She looked puzzled, then laughed too, trying to imitate him. It came out awkward and bright. The sound filled the garage like music from another world. He realized he wanted to hear it again. Before she left that evening, she paused at the door. Eddie Sparks, if emotional combustion continues, will I multiply? He blinked, searching for words. Maybe not the way you think. But yeah, you'll grow. Growth through chaos, she murmured. I like your planet's science. After she disappeared into the dusk, Eddie leaned against the car and muttered. That woman's either gonna save the galaxy or set it on fire. Somewhere in the distance, her ship pulsed a quiet, curious glow, as if agreeing with him. The next day began with static in the air and a strange silence between them. Zaira arrived at the garage carrying what looked like a miniature reactor core. Today we proceed with controlled testing of emotional combustion, she declared. Eddie blinked. We're talking feelings, right? Not explosions. She smiled faintly. On Tentaculin, they are the same. He set down his wrench, half amused, half worried. She connected wires from her device to the jukebox in the corner. Music stimulates chemical empathy, she explained. We will quantify your human reaction. He raised an eyebrow. You're turning my playlist into a lab experiment? Affirmative. When the first song played, a slow, smoky tune, she tilted her head, studying his heartbeat on her monitor. Increased rhythm detected. Is this song your mating trigger? He groaned. It's just jazz. Then jazz is contagious. Her voice carried both wonder and mischief. Eddie leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You really think love can be graphed? Everything can be graphed, she said. Even chaos. She approached him with her scanner, holding it close to his chest. Your signal fluctuates. That's called nerves, he muttered. A good sign, she said softly. The way she observed him wasn't just scientific anymore. Her AI companion, a metallic sphere hovering near the ceiling, interrupted with monotone precision. Warning, emotional interference at 73%. Recommend sedation. She shot it an icy glance. Silence, Orb 7. This is for science. The orb beeped skeptically. Eddie laughed. Even your robot doesn't buy it. She ignored him and turned back to the monitor, though her pulse had climbed higher than his. She began cataloging human gestures, laughter, glances, hesitations. But the more she studied, the less her definitions fit. When Eddie made her laugh, truly laugh, without translation, the monitor spiked uncontrollably. Explain, she demanded. That sound I made, why does it reduce stress and increase connection? Because it's real, he said. You can't program it. Unacceptable, she said, frustrated. My data is inconsistent. Welcome to being human, he replied. To prove her system could predict outcomes, she initiated what she called Phase 3, Stimulus Proximity. She stood close enough that the static between them hummed. Observation, temperature rising, she noted. Possible atmospheric malfunction. Or maybe, he said, voice quiet, you're just flustered. She blinked. Define flustered. It's when logic takes a coffee break. Your species drinks emotion stimulants? Constantly. They stared at each other long enough for the orb to chirp again. Warning, subjects entering unstable resonance. Zyra sighed. Orb 7, you ruin every hypothesis. She shut it off and turned back to Eddie. Continue experiment manually. He smirked. Manually? Yes. No automation. Full participation required. You have a strange way of asking someone to spend time with you. Is it effective? It's working. They spent the afternoon testing her theory that shared activities accelerated emotional bonding. Fixing the jukebox, cooking, even washing tools, each act became a microcosm of connection. She took notes obsessively. Shared labor increases mutual trust by 22%. Physical proximity reduces social armor. Eddie peeked at her notes and scribbled underneath, add laughter and pie, results double. She read it and smiled for no measurable reason. As night fell, she grew quiet. I was told emotion weakens command, she confessed. On my world, affection is inefficient. Maybe efficiency isn't everything, he said. Without it, you don't get art, or stubborn mechanics, or midnight milkshakes. Or combustion, she added. Exactly. He met her gaze, and for the first time she didn't look away. Then her ship's warning siren interrupted the moment. On the communicator, her superior barked orders in a harsh alien tongue. Eddie caught fragments through her translator: contamination, recall, termination protocol. She switched it off mid-sentence. They think I am compromised. Because of me? Because of us. They fear emotional infection. She paced, torn between duty and something unnamed. If I return, they will erase this data, and my memory, Eddie said. Then don't go. She stared at him like he'd suggested defying gravity. Desertion carries death penalty. So does curiosity sometimes, he said quietly. She hesitated, then whispered, humans risk extinction for feelings. That's why I came here. Her voice trembled, not fear, but realization. You fight wars for love, write songs for heartbreak, rebuild after loss. My people would call that madness. They wouldn't be wrong, he said. But it's beautiful madness. She turned away, pretending to check her instruments, though her hands shook. I need empirical proof of beauty, she said. You already have it, he answered. She looked up. Where? Right here, he said, tapping his chest. Her systems began to overload again, sensors lighting up like constellations. Emotional radiation increasing, she muttered. Uncontrollable. Then let it burn, he said. The ship's AI reactivated automatically, flashing warnings. Core temperature critical. She smiled faintly. Finally, accurate data. Energy rippled through the garage, harmless but dazzling. Instruments flickered, bolts rattled, radio static turned melodic. She clutched her recorder and whispered. Observation, emotional combustion achieved. No fatalities. Consider repeating. Eddie laughed, breathless. You're incredible. She tilted her head. Incredible means something worth believing in. The alarms died down. She exhaled, a purely human sound. You have contaminated me, Eddie Sparks. I am no longer purely logical. Good, he said. Logic's overrated. She smiled, writing her final note of the day. Humans reproduce not only through biology, but through connection. Contact spreads meaning faster than genes. As she closed her notebook, the radio crooned a love song that made no sense and perfect sense at once. She didn't analyze it this time. She simply listened, eyes closed, memorizing the rhythm of imperfection. The orb rebooted quietly, scanning them both. Report conclusion? It asked. Zaira answered softly. The experiment continues. Outside, the stars pulsed like curious witnesses. Somewhere among them, her world awaited her report. But for now, the Princess of Tentaculin leaned against a broken jukebox, smiling at the human who had taught her that combustion and affection were the same fire. The following morning the desert sky shimmered like liquid glass, and Zaira stood on the edge of her ship's ramp staring at the horizon as if trying to memorize every grain of sand. Her communicator blinked again, this time carrying the voice of her father, the Emperor of Tentaculin himself. Princess Zaira. It boomed. Your mission is compromised. Prepare for extraction. She lowered the device slowly. Acknowledged, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Eddie watched from below, wiping grease from his hands. So that's it? They're calling you home? They claim I have absorbed too much human influence, she replied. They are correct. He leaned against the fender of the car they'd been fixing for days. You could just tell them you failed. She shook her head. Failure is forbidden. But love is worse. The word hung in the air between them, both foreign and familiar. You just said it, he noted softly. You said love? It is a human contagion, she replied, though the corners of her mouth curved upward. One I do not wish to cure. Her ship's engines began to hum, impatient for departure. The orb hovered beside her, blinking red. Departure in 6 minutes, it announced. Eddie stepped closer. Do you want to go? She hesitated. I want to understand why I don't. He smiled. That's the first step to staying. She looked at him, eyes flickering with conflicting algorithms and emotion. Eddie Sparks, if I remain, I risk disownment, exile, possible vaporization. Guess it's a fair trade for a milkshake and a little combustion, he said, grinning. She exhaled a laugh that was half sigh. Your species defies survival logic. That's kind of our thing, he said. She paced, clutching her logbook. My report will decide whether your planet is studied further or left to its own chaos. And what are you gonna write? He asked. She opened it and read aloud. Humans multiply through connection. They bond through imperfection. Their strength lies not in logic, but in reckless empathy. She paused, then added quietly, recommend observation, not invasion. Eddie nodded. Sounds fair. Maybe throw in a good Yelp review while you're at it. She smiled again, a slow, genuine curve. Her ship's AI interrupted. Warning, emotional interference detected. Recommend immediate extraction. She turned off the communicator and looked around at the garage, the desert, the man who had become the anomaly in all her data. Eddie, do humans always feel this conflict when choosing between duty and desire? Only when it matters, he said. That's how we know it's real. She looked back at her ship one last time. Tentaculin will send others. They will not understand what I found. Then teach them, he said. Or at least send a postcard. A what? A message that says you're okay, and that you found something worth breaking rules for. For the first time, she didn't overanalyze. She just reached out, placing her palm against his chest as if memorizing his pulse. You are unpredictable, inefficient, and emotionally volatile, she said. And that is why I cannot leave you. He smiled. You say the sweetest things. Without warning, her ship's engines flared. The orb beeped wildly. Unauthorized cancellation detected. Warning, Princess Zyra in violation of Galactic Code 47. She ignored it, typing commands into her wrist console. Self-destruct protocol initiated. Wait, what? Eddie shouted. She grinned. Relax. Only a partial illusion. They will think I am gone. You faked your own death? An acceptable side effect of love, she said. The sky lit up as her ship rose, then exploded into harmless fireworks, gold and silver ribbons scattering across the desert like celestial confetti. The locals miles away would call it a meteor shower. Eddie just stared at the fading lights, muttering, You sure know how to make an exit. Minutes later, behind the diner, a hatch opened in a pile of scrap metal, and Zyra emerged, covered in dust but smiling triumphantly. Deception successful, she said. Status, alive and unroyal. Welcome to the club, he replied. She wiped soot from her face and looked at the glowing sky. So this is freedom? Pretty much. It's messy, noisy, and unpredictable. Perfect, she said. I shall begin my next experiment immediately. Oh yeah? What's that? He asked. Integration into human society. Step 1? Acquire employment. He raised an eyebrow. You're an alien princess. What are you gonna do for work? Study human behavior in controlled environments, she said. Perhaps at this diner. He laughed. You want to be a waitress? Field research, she corrected. As the neon flickered back to life, they walked toward the Milky Way Cafe. She glanced at him, almost shyly. Eddie Sparks, if I am to remain here, I require a teacher. Someone well versed in the rituals of affection, sarcasm, and pancakes. He grinned. Lucky for you, I've got a PhD in all three. The jukebox inside started playing again, the same love song that had followed them from the first night. She tilted her head, still fascinated. Humans repeat patterns even when they cause instability. That's called nostalgia, he said. It's our favorite form of self-inflicted emotion. Noted, she said, jotting it down. Humans willingly revisit emotional pain. Hypothesis, they find beauty in their own chaos. You're getting the hang of it, he said. They slid into a booth. The waitress recognized Zyra immediately but only said, You here for coffee this time, sweetheart? Yes, Zyra replied. And perhaps further analysis of emotional combustion. The waitress laughed, shaking her head. Whatever you say, doll. Eddie leaned closer. You realize she thinks you're joking. That is acceptable, Zyra replied. Truth is often best disguised as humor. As the coffee steamed between them, she stared into the cup, then at him. When I first arrived, I thought humans were fragile creatures bound by confusion. Now I see you are resilient because of it. Took you long enough, he teased. Tentaculin years are slower, she said. Besides, understanding your kind requires participation. He raised his mug. To participation. She mirrored him, her eyes bright. To combustion. They laughed, the sound blending with the hum of the diner and the fading echo of fireworks outside. Later, as they stepped out under the starry sky, she recorded her final log entry. Conclusion: human multiplication is not confined to biology. They multiply through laughter, touch, and shared defiance. Love is their greatest technology. Recommend adoption of this method. She closed the recorder, pocketed it, and looked at Eddie. Ready to teach me the rest? Always, he said. And as they walked down the dusty road beneath a galaxy that now seemed smaller, the Princess of Tentaculin whispered to herself, Humans mate not with logic, but with madness, and I love every minute of it.